So, good morning and welcome to this session. It is my great privilege to chair it. The title is Private Investments in Research, the Rapidly Evolving Landscape Around the World. And of course, we have to see what's happening here in Greece. And I'm very happy, very honored to have the panelists with me. Yannis Kaltsas is the head of division and actually the head of the investment team for Greece and Cyprus of the European Investment Bank. And another Yannis Gkikopoulos. He is the Chief Innovation Officer and Head of AI and Analytics in Qualco. Michalis Vafopoulos, founder and CEO of Linked Business. And with many hats, actually, Dimitris Angelakis, Professor Dimitris Angelakis. He's a professor at the Technical University of Crete, but also a PI at the Center for Quantum Technologies and Quantum Computing in Singapore, and founder of a startup called Angel Q Quantum Computing. So here they are to talk about this very, very interesting topic. So the last few years, we are all witnessing an unprecedented growth in technology, an exponential growth in technology, I would say. And this has brought a lot of disruption in the worldwide in the research ecosystem. A few years ago, a couple of decades ago, we were all witnessing the major scientific achievements, the major technological progress to happen in academia and maybe in some of the monumental labs such as the AT&T Bell Laboratories or the T.J. Watson labs of IBM, the Exxon labs in Ronsleydale. Things have been changing incredibly much. Now we see big technology, big science being produced in startups, in corporations. We see lots of funding being directed exactly in this direction. International VCs invest very heavily exactly in research. And we are also witnessing some major departures from the past, like the big co-development projects that take place between corporations and research institutions worldwide for development of IP. And of course, we see even technology transfer offices of powerful universities actually becoming companies themselves and entering the stock market. So these are big, big departures from what we were used to. Can Greece benefit from this cosmogony that is happening in research these days? I hope we will get answers to that and what will be the directions. I will start with Yannis Gkikopoulos. And Yanni, you are now the Chief Innovation Officer of Qualco. This is an international company over 35 countries, the international footprint. It's a innovative fintech, data insight for decisions. You've left actually Amsterdam to take over this job, so I'm not going to call it brain gain, but still tell us about Qualco's next plans.
Perfect. So first of all, thank you very much. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here and be able to speak about the future from a place with such deep roots in the past. Within Qualco, but also within the technology world, there's a few things that have been happening. There's a few things that are happening. First and foremost, any and every type of what we call next generation technology, call it AI, call it machine learning, everything that is driven by data to a very large extent has been part of our daily lives now for a considerable amount of time. It would even be it wouldn't be amiss to say that next generation technologies at this point in time are old news. Right? We've been around. Now, during the last especially few months, the last couple of years, and to paraphrase the SAS acronym, we had the DAAC. So disease as a catalyst. So suddenly, unfortunately. We had COVID act as a catalyst of the way that we're working, the way that we're communicating, the way that we are leveraging all these technologies. So we have seen how these technologies have come down from the sphere of innovation down to day-to-day life. Now the question still remains, and this is the biggest point. How do you go from theory to practice? How can you make sure that all these fantastic new ways of working, all these fantastic ways of harnessing data, all these fantastic ways of creating insights are actually becoming part of corporate life? And this is what we aim to do within Qualco. So we aim to bridge the chasm between theory, between academia, and real-life use cases, creating value for our clients and their customers in a tangible, pragmatic, sustainable, long-term way. I would say that this would be the primary objective. Now, how do you achieve this? 3+1 different ways. One, definitely using technology as an enabler of top-line growth. Making sure that a company, a function, a unit can actually grow beyond its predictable growth curve by looking into data, identifying data, cleansing data, structuring data, governing data, getting insights, and with the help of those insights, going back to the company's customers and thus enhancing their journey. B, acting as a multiplier for human capital. There's always been this fear of man versus machine, of the Terminator coming in and destroying and clearing out humanity for machines. That hasn't happened, and that's not going to happen. What is happening is that gradually we're seeing more and more subject matter experts, because I think this is the basis of all great new target operating models, becoming business analysts and identifying how and where technology can actually help them in creating competitive advantage. Thirdly, making sure that return on investment is maximized. Technology is the best way of creating that advantage. Technology is the best way of making sure that a dollar in actually creates most dollars out versus any other type of investment. And I'm going to finish by saying that all of that is fantastic, but the +1 is that unless there is upfront investment in terms of where the talent is coming from, how the education is actually working, how are people being trained, how collaboration is being made, none of the above is going to be feasible, right? Just two small numbers, and I'm going to conclude. Right now, even in the most advanced AI-enabled countries or societies, and this country is Japan, unsurprisingly, only 25% of the companies are what we call AI leaders, right? And if you look at the difference in terms of AI leaders and AI laggards, the amount of money that goes into investment into these next generation technologies, on the one hand is 3x, which sounds big. On the other hand, the delta is somewhere between 1% and 3% of top line. So still a very, very long way to go in terms of enabling investment and growth through these areas. Having said that, that 1 to 3 percentage points can actually provide additional returns anywhere between 3 and 6 percentage points in terms of gross operating margin. Just imagine that, 3 to 6 percentage points.
All right. Let me pass to Michalis Vafopoulos. Michalis, you want to speak in English or Greek? I will address the question in English. Right. It's up to you for the answer. So it's a new company. It's a young company, Link Business, and you heard about leadership in AI. You are a data scientist yourself, and a company that is award-winning. I recall the NBG award for the NBG Seeds Award in 2019. And you are a company that you have your roots into research laboratories, actually into public research laboratories. So you stand to benefit a lot from this kind of investments right now. What are your plans and how do you proceed?
Ευχαριστώ πολύ και μεγάλη τιμή και σε εμάς μια μικρή εταιρεία να είναι σε αυτό το μεγάλο φόρουμ. Νομίζω ότι ο καταλυτικός παράγων είναι να συμμετέχεις σε ένα οικοσύστημα καινοτομίας. Και λέγοντας να συμμετέχεις, να είσαι ενεργό μέλος που πρώτα σκέφτεσαι πώς θα συνεισφέρεις. Και δευτερευόντως, με ποιον τρόπο θα αποφεληθείς. Και αυτή την κουλτούρα, ψάχνοντας γύρω, όταν στην αρχή ήταν πολύ νέο το οικοσύστημα καινοτομίας στην χώρα, αυτή την κουλτούρα τη βρήκαμε στο Δημόκριτο. Και όντας ερευνητές εκεί και έχοντας κάνει επιτυχημένα έργα, δεν σας κρύβω ότι η πρώτη ερώτηση, ο πρώτος άνθρωπος που ρώτησα αν αυτή η ιδέα έχει μέλλον και νιώθει ωραία η ομάδα μου να την υλοποιήσουμε, ήταν μέσα στο Δημόκριτο. Και αν δεν είχα πάρει από εκεί ενθάρρυνση, όσο έμπειρος ή γερός στο μάχη να είχα, θα έπαιρνα πολύ μεγαλύτερο ρίσκο για να το κάνω. Επομένως, το νούμερο ένα είναι να μπορείς να έχεις ένα περιβάλλον όπου να υπάρχει διάλογος μεταξύ των επιχειρηματικών αναγκών και των αποτελεσμάτων της έρευνας. Και αυτός ο διάλογος γίνεται πολύ πιο γρήγορα όταν μεσολαβούν ερευνητές ή επιχειρηματίες που έχουν όρεξη να κάνουν crossover χωρίς ταμπού. Αυτό λοιπόν είναι το πιο σημαντικό κομμάτι. Τώρα, εμείς πήγαμε επίσης ενάντια στο ρεύμα, αρχίσαμε να ασχολούμαστε και να κάνουμε υπηρεσίες από open data για επιχειρήσεις που στην ουσία δεν είναι πραγματικά open data. Ούτε το γεμί, μόνο η διάβγεια και το ΕΣΠΑ, πολύ λίγες πηγές είναι σε καλή μορφή όπως το εξωτερικό για να κάνεις υπηρεσίες. Γι' αυτό λοιπόν λειτουργήσαμε και εκεί στην κοινότητα των Open Data, φέρνοντας ένα πολύ μεγάλο οργανισμό, το Open Data Institute στη χώρα, για να βοηθήσει και την κοινότητα των Open Data να λειτουργήσει. Άρα λοιπόν, εν ολίγης, για να καταφέρουμε να έχουμε πια υπηρεσίες που βοηθούν τις εταιρείες σήμερα να κάνουν με έναν καινούριο τρόπο B2B Sales Generation και KYC, η εθνική, το Digital Business Onboarding που βλέπετε, το έχουμε φτιάξει όλο από πίσω εμείς, βασιστήκαμε στο να αξιοποιήσουμε και να διαλεχθούμε με την ερευνητική κοινότητα και την επιχειρηματική κοινότητα ως ενεργά μέλη.
Thank you. So now I will address the question to the major investor here. And Yanni Kaltsa, you're representing, I think, the wealthiest bank in the world. and you have undertaken these efforts, these investment efforts in Greece. And I know I'm myself grateful for picking up research also as one of the targets of VIB the last few years. What are the plans now? I mean, with all these radical changes, is in Europe and the world, is EIB targeting specific areas for research, and what about Greece?
Thank you very much, Yorgo, and thank you for the kind words. Of course, the EIB is a public bank, so it's very funny because normally when I present in Northern European countries, the first question is, this is our money, this is the taxpayers' money, it's not your money. Just to clarify that in this case, the EIB does not use taxpayers' money, use the guarantee of the member states, and this be able to borrow money very cheaply in the markets, negative interest rates currently, and then to pass this advantage without trying to make profit, but to push certain areas. And one of these areas, indeed, is research and development. And you're absolutely right that we have seen a revolution in the way that R&D is perceived. I was comparing what we were doing between 2000 and 2010 in Europe in terms of R&D. And although even then we had innovative, pioneering R&D projects, I remember back in 2001, for example, I was looking, the reports were financing the hydrogen technology of a major European automotive company, their R&D program. And I was looking at the report, their concerns that will we have enough energy in the future? They were worried that gas is not sustainable, that maybe we have to move to nuclear, that hydrogen is a vector of energy, it's not energy source by itself. So, you know, we have to address this security question. But while they were pioneering research projects at the time, most of the research during that era was what we call evolutionary research, which was the most commercially successful. What kind of research used to be the most commercially successful? It is the Gillette from 1 blade to 2 blade. There was the most money were made. We have a complete change now. We have all the major European companies that are most of our clients to really take risks and invest in disruptive technologies or expecting to produce disruptive technologies. You see some technical descriptions of their projects and you feel this is science fiction. This will never take place. But also there is a change in mentality. One of the radical changes that we have in the EIB, for example, the last 3 years is it was unthinkable 3 years ago that the EIB to finance defensive research. Defense was a European institution, an international organization with a mission of development would never touch defense, whatever it has to do, could be used for war or this kind of technology. There's a change of thinking, and we feel that defense and research, dual research that also can touch the defense sector is not only vital for the security of Europe, but it is also a source of huge innovation for the future. So a lot of investment currently in really disruptive technologies. I would like to highlight, for example, the area of climate change. We have major companies investing crazy amounts of money to things that most likely will not happen, but they're willing to take bets because they feel that climate change probably will not be able to, unfortunately, to lower the emissions. So what we'll need will be some disruptive technology to bring radical change in the way that our economies are operating. So, and this is where more of our research is channeled. When it comes to Greece, we do feel that Greece has an opportunity, and what we have done was to select the best of the research centers in Greece the last few years. Demokritos was one of them, and actually the reason that Demokritos, Yorgo, was one of them, it was because I think partly you had the vision and you took a Demokritos that had the image of this nuclear pilot nuclear facility in the middle of the campus. You put it aside and you really adjusted your thinking at the time, and you brought some of the best companies in the world that they are sitting today with us to come to Greece and to partner to do the production. Our next, what we want to do, part of our mission is to channel also in Greece important amounts of EU grants that are currently available for research. So we're a bank, we're giving loans, we provide venture capital, but we feel also Greece should not stay outside of this opportunity of structural funds or other resources that could benefit these companies. And I'm glad, and we have talked many times, that our partnership for Democritus or the other research centers should be just the beginning. Now is the time ahead.
Okay, this is very exciting to hear. And now, for all these years, we've been talking about the fourth industrial revolution, and it's time that we start speaking about the second quantum revolution. And to speak about that, Professor Angelakis is here with us. It's expected, and I'm not going to produce a hype here, it's expected that quantum computers will disrupt everything, will disrupt our everyday lives, will disrupt companies, entire industries, the world. And we are just seeing the beginning, but already we see a lot of research taking place in the academia, in big corporations, and startups as well around the world. So you have a very good experience as a PI in Singapore, in one of the most dynamic quantum centers right now in the world. So we are all waiting to hear how things are going to change and what are going to be the benefits for that.
Thank you, George. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Really glad to be here, back home, in the center of the world, in the navel of the world, on Phalossis Gis. First time in Delphi. I quite enjoyed the week. Lots of interesting talks on science and defense and security and everything. So I'll speak with my startup hat mainly, but I do have two more hats. I'm a professor in Singapore in the first Center for Quantum Technologies. We founded 15 years ago. We were in Cambridge at the time, and Singaporeans decided to start something in quantum. They didn't have much in quantum at the time. I think Greece now has more than Singapore had 10 years ago. But they went very dynamically, and they managed to make a top 10 R&D centers in the world. So what is quantum computing? Let me start with the quantum revolution first. You already lived the first quantum revolution. You have it in your pockets. This is semiconductor technology that's based on quantum revolution 1.0. We managed to make semiconductors work because of wave mechanics and quantum mechanics of the early 20th century. Now we're going through the second quantum revolution. This is where information itself is quantized. The bit itself becomes a quantum object, and it sounds very exotic and almost Star Trek technology, but it's true, it is a necessity. Why it's a necessity? Because we're already reaching the limit of classical computers in terms of power and processing and size. As we heard earlier, data is exploding. We double in size almost every year. It's impossible to keep track and produce faster and faster classical computers based on the way we build classical machines at the moment. The smallest connection in a transistor, even in this kind of phones, already hitting the atomic limit. At the atomic limit, nature is very different. Something can be on and off at the same time. Current can go through or not. A switch can be on and off at the same time. It's extremely exotic and maybe even crazy, but that's how it operates. The idea is to turn that to our use and design new machines. That's why it's a disruptive technology that exploit that quantum superposition to do massive parallel computation. So when we say parallel, we mean about things that take 6 months or a year done in a few hours. Of course, this is the algorithmic part, this is the software part, this is where we are in terms of mathematics. The devices are being built at the moment. They are not full scale yet. We're reaching that limit quite soon, I think, because that's why industry is important to come in. This work is coming out of universities. There are massive investments in private sectors. Lots of my colleagues left their universities and worked for Google or IBM recently, the last 5 years, or started their own companies. Mention one or two, for example, from University of Maryland. You might have heard IonQ was valuated for $2 billion, a startup in ion traps, which is a very atomic physics, exotic technology. And so the question is, what's next? How we can, especially in terms of the Greek ecosystem, what can be done, and how small Greece but could also play a role in this evolution. Europe, I would like to say that Europe is already investing heavily. There is the quantum flagship for the 10 years, the next 10 years. We had big data, graphene, and now the quantum technologies flagship is it's a big push. We do need a local national initiative, national quantum initiative. I think we will need a quantum institute in Greece. And my personal opinion is that Greece can really compete on the software and algorithm side. We have very talented people coming out from the universities. I teach at the Technical University of Crete. 50% of our startup in Singapore are actually students that have finished in Crete and they work remotely, writing algorithms, writing quantum enhanced AI, quantum data analytics type of approaches, looking at real use cases. So I think it's an exciting time, and looking forward to interact with you afterwards.
Great. Me too. I hope Greece this time will be one of the revolutionaries and not just following the outcomes. Yanni Kaltsa, I'm going back to defense because you mentioned it, and I think we will be talking a lot about defense the next few years. Yesterday in Brussels, it was announced that NATO is creating an innovation fund ready to invest in startups. And quantum computing is one of the fields that NATO is choosing for that, along with, of course, AI and big data and space and biotechnology. EIB, yourselves, how open you will be in directly linking your projects with defense?
First of all, congratulations, Yorgo. This is a great achievement. It has to be mentioned that among 8 countries that they were competing to get the NATO center for defense, no?
The accelerator for
the accelerator,
yes.
Among 8 countries.
There were more, there were like 22. And now we are one of the 8 accelerators.
So Greece, Demokritos, got it. So, I mean, this is a big success. It's worth being highlighted. It's not very talked. I mean, the news these days are more about negative news and family dramas, but this is something that I think really is worth to be highlighted. So congratulations, first of all. And then the second, as I mentioned, for us this is something new, but what is clear is that what Europe realized is that there are other superpowers like the United States, that they invested heavily in defense, and this has benefited tremendously their industries and as well as, of course, their capacity to protect themselves. So we will not finance weapons directly. We will not finance bombs and missiles. What we will finance, however, is this kind of research which has a dual use that can be applied for defense industry, but also can have commercial, business applications that can help the people in their everyday life. And there are 3 dimensions. There is the first, the startups, where we have established together with the EIF funds where we would be able to take this kind of investments. Then, together with the European Commission, we will be managing the European, the EIC, the European Innovation Committee, where we will be able to go for the next step. Because the crucial is from the startup to move afterwards to commercial production. And there they will be available for from 500,000 euros up to 15 million euros, either equity or grants, to be able to push this kind of evolution. And of course, third, afterwards, we'll be very happy to finance cooperation with corporates, because if you want this, startups, of course, they have a very important role. Taking the startup has also a very crucial role, but very often a partnership with a big corporate, a big company to take this project and bring it in a much higher speed in all corners of the world is quite important. We'll be very happy there to do the finance.
Great. Okay, Michalis, now with the establishment of the NATO accelerator, startup accelerator at Demokritos, for instance, you will be surrounded now by startups coming from all over the member countries of NATO, doing also defense projects. How comfortable you feel with that, and are you planning to take advantage in this ecosystem that will take this coloring now?
Νομίζω είναι εξαιρετική η εξέλιξη και συνεχίζοντας από αυτό που έλεγα πριν, στο οικοσύστημα λοιπόν έχουμε ένα πολύ ισχυρό ερευνητικό ίδρυμα που κάνει εκπαίδευση και έρευνα. Έχουμε μικρές εταιρείες. Τι μας λείπει ακόμα? Μας λείπουν μεγάλες εταιρείες όπως η Qualco, ελληνικές, γιατί οι ξένες το έχουν στο DNA τους, και funds τα οποία θα έρθουν να συμπληρώσουν αυτό το τετράπτυχο. Με κοινή συνισταμένη, αυτό που έλεγα πριν, πραγματικά διάθεση ενεργητική για συνεργασία. Όχι με τον παραδοσιακό ελληνικό τρόπο που πολλές φορές γίνεται σε άλλα μικρότερα εγχειρήματα. Επομένως, έχοντας πρώτα απ' όλα, είμαστε τώρα πλέον ως μέλη του ομίλου Qualco, όπου έχουμε καταφέρει να εισαγάγουμε και τη λογική της μικρής εταιρείας. Ήταν ήδη έτοιμοι να τα ακούσουν αυτό στο Qualco και νομίζω ήρθε και ως καταλυτικός παράγων η συνεργασία με το Δημόκριτο. Νομίζω ότι έχοντας και το πέμπτο κομμάτι που είναι η διεθνή σκηνή, startup, funds στη συνέχεια, αρχίζει να συμπληρώνεται ένα puzzle επιτυχίας. Να μην ξεχάσω βέβαια και όλη την κτηριακή ανασυγκρότηση που οργανώνεται, διότι καταλαβαίνω ότι η ζήτηση για χώρους θα είναι πολύ μεγαλύτερη, διότι και άλλες ελληνικές εταιρείες θα θέλουν να ακολουθήσουν το καλό παράδειγμα της Qualco, όπου πίστεψε σε ερευνητές και σε μικρές εταιρείες και θα θέλουν να μπουν σε αυτό το οικοσύστημα. Νομίζω ότι μόνο να κερδίσουμε έχουμε από τις συνέργειες που χτίζουμε σε διαφορετικά μεγέθη, διαφορετικά αντικείμενα, καθότι για μας η τεχνολογία των δεδομένων είναι η οριζόντια γραμμή που ενώνει όλα αυτά που κάνουμε και ζούμε στην εποχή όπου η δύναμη των δεδομένων λειτουργεί ως υποδομή για να κάνεις πράγματα. Δεν μπορείς να ζήσεις χωρίς αυτή την υποδομή. Είτε κάνεις defense, είτε κάνεις business services, είτε κάνεις market intelligence, είτε κάνεις quantum computing and engineering.
Okay. All right. In the last 2 minutes, Gkikopoulos, how ready, how thoughtful you are about embracing technologies such as quantum in a corporate world? How about making the steps towards quantum AI in a large international
one small step for research, one giant step for corporate entities. So I think, the world is as ready as the world is, but at the same time, research is going to make sure that quantum computing, quantum technology, in exactly the same way that edge computing before that, the cloud, even data centers, actually enable the corporate world. Now, is that something that we can harness today and tomorrow and in 6 months? Probably not. Having said that, the advances of technology, and I'm sure it's going to be exactly the same within quantum computing, are almost a part of day-to-day life. So again, I cannot give you a timeline. I'm sure it's going to happen, right? At the end of the day, within the corporate world and within anything that the corporate world serves, it is all about reducing latency in all its forms. So quantum computing is a critical part of that. I'm sure we're going to see the effect.
Great. And Dimitri, what will it take for you to start venturing in quantum in Greece, for Angel Q Quantum Computing to start ventures in Greece? What will it take?
Well, Angel Q Quantum Computing is already active in Greece. As I said, half of our staff are graduate students or students that come out of local universities, and I plan to enhance that. And then venturing, I'm happy to talk to see how we can get local Greek businesses quantum ready for the disruptive revolution, because it's going to happen. And it's going to happen like the internet. It will happen and it will be disruptive, and you won't want to be left out. So that's the...
All right. Well, thank you very much. I never introduced myself. I'm George Rounesis. I'm the director of the National Center for Scientific Research, Demokritos. Thank you all for your attention. Thank you very much.